One of the Cincinnati region's rare unicorns, that is, a company worth at least $1 billion, has abruptly ceased operations. And in other news, Skywalk is coming back downtown as one of our largest private companies expands its headquarters. Meanwhile, Procter & Gamble is making a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Amazon touts its local economic impact, and a James Beard-nominated chef is opening his second restaurant. This is Above the Fold.
Whether you're rediscovering your hometown or planning your next getaway, Cincy offers unforgettable experiences at a price that's hard to beat. Catch a game, explore world-class museums, enjoy miles of parks and trails, experience live music, or dive into one of the Midwest's most exciting food scenes. Learn more or plan your trip at visitcincy.com.
Welcome to Above the Fold, a podcast by the Cincinnati Business Courier, presented by Cincinnati Regional Tourism, where we bring you the week's top stories and interviews with newsmakers that take you behind the people and personalities in the news. I'm your host, Andy Brownfield, joined by co-host and Courier Editor-in-Chief, Tom Demeropoulos. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Andy. Good to be here.
So you've still got me for at least one more week as we're on 24/7 baby watch in the Brownfield household. And a good week to be on the podcast. This week we have Dave Jenike, the CEO of the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. One of, in my opinion, the most interesting people in Cincinnati and a great storyteller. He took over for longtime director Thane Maynard at the beginning of the year, and he chats with us about what is new and next at the Cincinnati Zoo. As always, this is Above the Fold, so named for the biggest stories of the day, the ones that appeared at the top of a folded newspaper on the newsstand. Remember those?
I do remember newsstands. I worked at the student newspaper at UC, the News Record, and we printed 3 times a week, and we had newsstands all throughout campus. So you would see them Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday were our print days.
So a friend of mine had a good idea, which I like, is to let him know when the baby comes, and he will go out and pick up a newspaper for that day.
It's a good idea, yes, to have one for her to hang on to.
Yeah. So she knows what her dad did back when newspapers were still relevant, because they surely won't be once she's our age. First up, Tom, do you or Lauren garden? I swear this is relevant.
So yes, my wife does. She loves her flower garden, so we have all sorts of flowers, and we've done veggie gardens in the past. We don't have one this year.
My wife, Hannah, when we moved to our new place, we had built a raised garden bed, and this is her first summer growing in it. And I think it was a little ambitious, maybe not ambitious, she went ham. So we have a ton of tomato plants in that garden, probably more than should feasibly fit. I know it's kind of a feat getting back there, especially 9 months pregnant, to pick all the tomatoes. But I tell you, having a garden fresh tomato, especially a cherry tomato, is an entirely different experience than having something that you buy from the supermarket. I mean, I swear the supermarket tomatoes shouldn't even be allowed to be called tomatoes.
Yes, it is a very different product, and I prefer like the beefsteak tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yes, from someone's garden. Those are fantastic.
Well, 80 Acres Farms, the vertical farming startup that's based out in Hamilton, they had their fireworks tomatoes grown hydroponically. Everything at 80 Acres was grown hydroponically. They were phenomenal. I mean, when they had them in stock, which wasn't that often at my Kroger, I always went out of the way to get them because they were truly just the closest thing you can get to garden tomatoes in the supermarkets.
100%.
And unfortunately, 80 Acres is a victim of what appears to be happening, industry-wide in the vertical farming space, after it announced last week that it is ceasing all operations.
Yeah, Andy, this is for fans of microgreens and salads and their fireworks tomatoes. This is tough news. It's also tough news for Cincinnati's startup ecosystem, because this is one of the companies that really was a darling, just had been an absolute giant, grown to an absolute giant in their industry.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the top, they're a unicorn, meaning they're valued at least $1 billion. And they came to that valuation by raising $400 million, which is the most any startup has ever raised in Cincinnati. And I think, with that came a lot of pressure. So typically how this venture capital space works is they typically back tech-based or some kind of computer technology or physical technology, because that can be scaled up really quickly. You can have an exit event like being sold to a larger player in the industry or having an IPO and going public, and then investors get a big return on that investment. So with $400 million in capital raised, there were big expectations for 80 acres. And vertical farming, any kind of farming, really isn't an apples to apples, pun intended, comparison to that kind of scalable tech.
Yeah, Andy, you're right. It's a little bit harder because there's a physical limitation. You have to have space and you have to have energy and you have to have water, and the costs of those things are going up.
Yeah, I mean, guess what else uses space, energy, and water?
Data
Devs.
centers.
Yeah. So Liz Engel reported out this story, and it's on our most recent cover. And she found out from a WARN notice in Washington State, which, for the uninitiated, under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, companies have to file these WARN notices anytime there's going to be a mass layoff. She found out through that WARN notice that 80 Acres had potential buyer lined up before it ceased all operations, and that deal fell through in the evening of August 2nd, right before 80 Acres, the day before 80 Acres announced its closure. The potential buyer was not named, and 80 Acres officials are being mum right now. But the company said it just wasn't able to secure the capital required to continue operations. And because of that, local layoffs are totaling around 272 between its Ohio and Kentucky operations, according to WARN notices filed in both states. But 80 Acres had employed about 1,400 people nationally at last count. 80 Acres had operated farms in Ohio, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, South Carolina, and Colorado, had pack houses in Indiana, Virginia, and Washington, and R&D facilities in Arkansas and Israel and the Netherlands. So it's a big blow both to Cincinnati's startup ecosystem and to lovers of pesticide-free produce. I mean, their spinach, their lettuce kits, they were fantastic. Really, amid this cyclospora outbreak, the only lettuce I really trusted.
Yeah, Andy, this was 80 Acres products were a regular in our household just because it was a local company, like supporting local, but you also knew the quality was just going to be really good. It was going to be really fresh, no pesticides. This one hurts a little bit.
So visitors to Courier Global HQ here at the Scripps Center usually comment on the view. We do have a pretty nice view into downtown.
We do.
It wasn't always that way, though. Tom, remember when we were in the Shillito's building on 7th and Race when I started, when you started as well?
Yes, I started at 7th and Race. I do remember that that office.
So then as now, like one of the biggest downsides of working downtown is finding parking. And I know you had a spot in the Pure Romance garage.
Yes, so I parked there for a long time. And even when we moved from 7th and Race down to 4th and Walnut, I kept that garage because it was so inexpensive. It was a little bit of a walk. The winter was not fun to walk in the snow or sleet or rain.
Or even in the summer in the heat. I remember I would pack a change of clothes because I would just be like sweating through my shirt by the time I got downtown. That was avoidable though. I also had a parking spot near the convention center. That was avoidable back when we had the Skywalk.
Yes, there were days, Andy, where I used to be able to get from 7th and Plum to 4th and Walnut almost entirely out of the elements back when the Skywalk was a thing.
Same. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit when they demolished the Skywalk. And, they did it because urban planners and city leaders realized that it hurt street level economic vitality. It created this perception downtown that it was abandoned, it was empty, there was no activity or life. And it was just difficult to maintain. There were bridges to nowhere as like Macy's closed before that was the Foundry. And people would just say there'd be a dead mall right there as you were walking through the Skywalk on your way to work. The Skywalk is coming back, or at least a small portion of it, as we back our way into the story of one of our largest private companies expanding its headquarters downtown.
Yeah, Andy, this is exciting news to see one of our companies that has moved to the core of the city post-pandemic and just continues to do well and has actually outgrown its space and therefore needs some additional room.
Yeah, Divisions Maintenance Group, or DMG, they're the 18th largest private company in Cincinnati with $790 million in revenue last year. And rapid growth, they grew 56% between 2021 and 2025. And they are in the Foundry, in that former Macy's building that was converted into retail and office space by 3CDC. And they need more space. So they've leased 20,000 square feet in the Huntington Center right next door. And that skywalk, they are rebuilding it in between their space at the Foundry and their space in the Huntington Center so that it feels like one contiguous space rather than that their employees are in two different buildings.
Yeah, Andy, I think that says a lot to me about how much DMG values their space at the Foundry. That instead of trying to find something new that can fit everything, because the rest of the Foundry building is already leased up to other companies, they're going as close as possible and not just being as close as possible, physically connecting the space so they can keep that continuity of one office feeling.
I think the bigger story here is just the density downtown. Kroger pulled all of its workers back downtown. P&G, most of its teams are in person most of the time. P&G is even reinvigorating the park in front of their headquarters just to give amenities to their downtown workers.
And
So,
Fifth Third's pulling back,
yeah.
or I shouldn't say pulling back, but moving employees from Madisonville
So
back downtown.
it kind of speaks to that logic of demolishing the skywalks in the first place, just having the streets active, having people moving from place to place. It gives downtown restaurants customers, it gives retailers customers, service businesses. Downtown, that's what leads to vibrancy. That's what makes people want to. It's kind of a chicken and egg situation where you got the workers and people living downtown, so businesses want to locate downtown. You have great businesses, restaurants and retailers and service industry places locating downtown, and that makes it a more exciting place for people to live and work.
Absolutely.
All right, Tom, we are going to wade dangerously close to bro podcast territory with this next story, but I couldn't think as we were prepping for this, I couldn't think of a better way to transition into it. Do you take any supplements?
I take a daily vitamin and just started taking creatine because it's apparently not only good for your physical health, but good for your mental health, good for your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I started taking creatine when I started lifting weights because I thought that I don't think it's one of the best research supplements out there, and it does help with energy and weirdly water retention in the muscles, which even retaining water makes them bigger and you can lift more. But especially as I'm getting prepared for the sleepless nights of having a newborn, I've read that it is also good for helping mitigate the effects of poor sleep.
Really? I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Supplements are becoming a massive industry, partially because, like I mentioned, in bro podcasts, you have the Joe Rogans of the world handing out a bunch of different supplements. But Procter and Gamble is getting in on the game with a massive acquisition.
Yeah, Andy, this is a big move for P&G as they're making this $3.8 billion acquisition of supplements maker Thorne, which is based in South Carolina. Interesting to see P&G kind of on the acquisition front.
Yeah, this is the first and biggest acquisition in recent memory, and the first major move by new CEO Shailesh Jejurikar. P&G's also already kind of dabbled in the supplement space before. They have Metamucil and Nervive and Align Probiotic, but this is the first time that they're getting into like really what you see from the supplements industry.
Yeah, and and I've just got to share as a newspaper person, supplements is not the friendliest word for headline writing.
No.
Trying to find a shorter version of supplements doesn't exist.
Yeah, but that's that's our problem. Thorne, they make supplements like creatine. They make magnesium glycinate, which I also take for sleep health and muscle relaxation. They make something called berberine, prenatal vitamins, iron. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. So this is a shift in strategy in P&G to get into a really fast-growing area of the market. I mean, Thorne generated more than $500 million in revenue last year, and it's on track to make $650 million in revenue in 2026. So that's pretty explosive growth, and a new avenue for P&G to grow. As they, like many other consumer packaged goods companies, have been impacted by everything from tariffs to the war between Russia and Ukraine, the war in Iran. It's a pretty stiff headwinds, so they're finding a new way to grow amid those headwinds.
And Andy, I think you're right. I think there's definitely a big push into health nationally, internationally, this idea of healthier living and taking supplements or just being for more health conscious, I think you're going to see more and more people interested in learning about these products.
Yeah, hopefully in a way that doesn't veer into optimization culture. Did you hear the host of the Mind of a CEO podcast or something like that? He said that he had 3 glasses of wine one night, didn't even get drunk, and it threw off his everything for the next week. He got poor sleep, he couldn't focus, and I wear a fitness tracker. I try not to let it govern my life. I don't look at my sleep score and say, oh, I need to optimize. I need to optimize. I need to get more sleep, get better sleep. It's data. Do the data what you will, but try not to go overboard with it. So Tom, I've got a doorbell camera, and I thought I'd be using it for things like telling solicitors to bug off remotely or seeing who's coming over to visit before they knock. But instead, I think it mostly just alerts me when Amazon's dropping off a package, which feels like a near daily occurrence.
Yes, Andy, I don't know about you, but we keep, especially in the summer, we keep Gatorade bottles cold to hand out to our Amazon delivery people on a regular basis because they're often enough that we have to have Gatorade around for them.
You know what? I think I'm gonna adopt that because with baby on the way, I anticipate many, many Amazon same day orders getting delivered to our house. It's big business. I mean, Amazon went from 2-day delivery to 1-day delivery to oftentimes now I'll notice we're out of something in the morning and I'll place an order and it will get there between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And a lot of that is coming through the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airports.
Yeah, Andy, we've talked about kind of some of the big moonshot projects that Cincinnati's landed in previous years, and getting Amazon's Air Hub was one where we kind of heard how big of a deal it was going to be, but it was hard to visualize what that economic impact actually looks like until seeing some of this data.
Yeah, the Air Hub is an 800,000 square foot facility on 600 acres, and it operates about 3 dozen flights per day. And for the first time, Amazon is peeling back the curtain and touting its economic impact here. Amazon says that its total economic investment in Boone County since 2010 has surpassed $30 billion, with an economic impact of more than $20 billion, including 17,000 indirect jobs. The hub supports about 4,000 jobs, and it has processed more than 1.5 billion packages since it opened. It cost $1.5 billion to build, and it was done in part to reduce Amazon's reliance on third-party carriers like FedEx and UPS. Correct me if I'm wrong, because my institutional memory is not that long, but didn't DHL's Super Hub follow along after Amazon's?
I believe DHL was already here when Amazon opened.
So it's probably a proof of concept for them to say, hey, DHL is doing this out of CVG and be a good place for us to do it too.
And Andy, living on the west side, one of the things that you can see all of the flight traffic coming in and out of CVG, and there are so many Amazon planes that you'll like, oh yeah, that's an Amazon plane. There's another one. There's another one.
So, I mean, the company's really planted its flag in Kentucky, in Northern Kentucky and the broader state. It says that its total investment since 2010 in the state of Kentucky was $75 billion, with a $55 billion economic impact and more than 19,000 full and part-time workers in Kentucky with 12 fulfillment and sorting centers. Have you ever toured the Hebron Sorting Center?
I have not.
They let us do it. I went right before Black Friday, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It was pre-pandemic. And it is just marvel of automation, and the amount of packages that it processes, sorts, and packs every single day is staggering. And the fact that they have it down like clockwork it's a feat. So if I ask you to name a chef in Cincinnati, what name immediately pops into mind?
So the first name for me would be David Falk, just because that's probably the first chef that I covered as a reporter in Cincinnati. Worked on his move to 6th Street, taking over at the old Masonette space with the 3CDC project there. So that's, to me, when someone says chef in Cincinnati, that's the first person I think of.
And he was under the wing of Jean Robert and kind of took up the mantle of fine dining in Cincinnati. He expanded from Boca, which was in the old Masonette space, to Soto, beneath it, now Nada. And around that same time, maybe slightly after, we kind of had this era of celebrity chefs in Cincinnati, of people like Daniel Wright opening Senate and Abigail Street, and then the barbecue restaurant, this name is escaping me right now. You had Jose Salazar, who came to help Daniel Wright, and he ended up opening Salazar himself, and then Nita's, then Daylily. But you don't really have that kind of celebrity chef type person opening up multiple spaces anymore.
No, and we haven't really seen a lot of that as of late.
We got now James Beard nominated chef Jeffrey Harris, who opened up Nolia, which is, I think, one of the most lauded and celebrated restaurants in Cincinnati. He is bringing back his first concept, Jimmy Lou's, and he's going to open it up in the former Boomtown Biscuits and Whiskey space in Pendleton, which became Razzo. So Nolia is known for being more broadly Southern. It is upscale. It's an old Please space, so again, another storied space. One of the things I was super impressed with when I covered that opening and toured the space was that Jeff is using as close to vegan ingredients as he can when he can. Now he's still serving things like fried chicken and redfish, but when you get something like grits or greens, he tries to be as approachable and open and open it up to as many people as possible. So Jimmy Lou's was something that he opened up in the Oakley Kitchen food hall. That food hall was pretty ambitious at the time, but I think soon outstripped by places like Element Eatery and the Gatherall Factory 52. So he closed that and is now bringing it back.
Yeah. This is exciting news to see, someone who is a lauded chef start to tiptoe into opening additional concepts in the market.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because restaurants notoriously hard business to succeed in, razor thin margins. And when you see a good operator, someone who's found success, they're doing something interesting, they're doing something unique. I don't think anyone else is doing Southern food the way that he is in Cincinnati right now. It's exciting to see them branch out and do more things. Jimmy Lou's is more to his roots in New Orleans. It's going to serve things like fried chicken, po' boy sandwiches, gumbo, etouffee, jambalaya. It was named for his grandmother. He told R. Haley Roden, "Jimmy Lou is the reason why I'm the chef. When we closed, a lot of our beginning clientele at Nolia came from Jimmy Lou." He actually originally named the bar of Nolia Jimmy Lou's after his grandmother as well. Harris, he received 3 James Beard nominations since 2023. He was a finalist, which for a long time, 20-something years, Cincinnati had not seen a chef make it to the finalist round. So he was a finalist this year for Best Chef in the Great Lakes region. And Nolia Kitchen was named Esquire's Best New Restaurants in America list in 2023.
Incredible to see what he's been able to do here in Cincinnati. Look at Cincinnati go. Look at Cincinnati's food scene. Just a hidden gem in the nation.
Yes, just to give listeners a sneak preview to next week's episode, we talked to Kristen Schlottman, the CEO of Film Cincinnati, and she said that when she brings film productions into Cincinnati, one of the things that they're most excited by is our food scene. Now that we've got the Michelin guide looking at our restaurants, there's going to be even more to talk about.
That's right, more recognition for us.
This week on the podcast, we have the Cincinnati Zoo's Dave Jenike. He was part of the duo that saw the Cincinnati Zoo transformed over the past 20 years as former director Thane Maynard's right-hand man and chief operating officer. Now, as of January 1st, Dave is the zoo's new CEO. He talks with us about the zoo's transformation, how the zoo gets its animals, what's new and what's next at one of the region's largest tourism draws. This is Dave Jenike on Above the Fold.
With family-friendly attractions, vibrant neighborhoods, there's something new around every corner. The Cincy is the perfect place to spend a day, a weekend, or longer. Learn more or plan your trip at visitcincy.com.
Dave, I think I've asked you this like 3 times since you started, but how has your role changed becoming COO to CEO? And do you have the coolest job in Cincinnati?
I think I do have the coolest job. It might, on any given day, like this morning, I walked out of my office just to take a quick walk around the zoo, and we were letting our lesser kudu calf out for the first time. So they were getting the zoomies running around the yard, getting used to the outdoor space. So we've got a whole family of kudu, and just to have the opportunity to interact with our visitors who are there and getting excited to see something that was really special and happening for the first time, and interact with our keepers. So that can be an everyday occurrence, walking around the zoo. And I think if anything, as I've stepped into this role now 6 months into a transition, I've become more energized than I ever have been at the both potential of what a zoo can accomplish and excitement about where we are as the Cincinnati Zoo, and what we've been able to accomplish and what the future looks like.
How often are you able to do those walkabouts, and how important are those to you as a leader to
Not
have eyes on everything?
Yeah, not often enough. It takes some intentionality because you work in a beautiful park, but just like you guys, your schedule gets filled up. People put meetings on it, all very important. Lots of conversations that you need to have. And you do need, and it's one thing I've recognized in the first 6 months. I need to be present, and those conversations that you have with the staff are critically important. It's how you stay in touch with what's happening in the zoo. And I'm working in a zoo. Like, I get to go out and do things. I just scheduled an appointment to go get some pictures of we have 4 new ring-tailed lemurs that are they're 4 boys. They're doing great in the habitat. And I wanted to go down and get a couple of pictures of them from inside the habitat. And to be able to make that call and say, all right, I want to put that on the calendar for Monday, that then also becomes my chance to hear from the team. How are things going? What are the challenges in front of us? I have had to be more intentional with those. It was a little easier before because a lot of my meetings were out on the grounds. And now, being in the leadership role at the zoo, I recognize the importance of my presence in discussions that are more outward focused, and I need to make sure I'm grounded. Beauty of that is we got a beautiful park, lots of excitement, and I need to spend more time.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was going to ask is your role now is a lot more outward facing, and how are you adjusting to that?
I'm telling the zoo story. So that is something, I grew up as an educator at the Cincinnati Zoo. So I've always been focused on engaging people in the story and engaging whether that's a story across the street or across the globe. And to a large extent, my job is to tell the zoo story to now a different community that I haven't been as engaged in my career path. But it's just as exciting, whether that is connecting with board members, whether that is connecting with community leaders, connecting with donors or members that are coming to the zoo. It actually is a lot of fun walking around the park and just stopping to chat with people that are coming to visit and what joy they found at the zoo today.
So how does one find one's way into employment at the zoo? Because talking to, I think it was Michelle Curley, that, zoos in general had to really kind of wrangle people to work there. And nowadays it's like you probably are finding people fall over themselves to volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you my story. So I started at the Cincinnati Zoo as an intern. My career path in college, I did a degree in zoology and a master's degree in environmental science. And I really didn't have education on the radar. But then I met these people from the zoo and I started hearing about what they're doing. And I heard about this incredible overnight program where kids get to spend the night at the zoo. I'm like, and then I started and got my start as an intern. I began to work in our education department. Still to this day, that kind of entry into a zoo career is a path that is traveled by many. It is one, whether it's a intern or a part-time or seasonal employee within our animal care team, we just started a zoo veterinary internship, which is a little more advanced. It's a veterinarian that'll come work with us for at least 1 year and hopefully 2. But where else are you going to get experience with Galapagos tortoises on one day and kudu on the next and gorillas on the third? You have to jump in and get that experience. So I think for a lot of people, if there is interest, it is about getting experience. It's about jumping in. Sometimes that's a volunteer route. Sometimes that's a seasonal route. Sometimes that's an internship. But there's nothing better than experience. One, it gives you a chance to see what you love doing. And 2, it gives you a little bit of better insight into what we're trying to accomplish.
So I think one of my favorite places at the zoo, the world of insects.
Yeah.
Not only because just growing up, I loved spiders and scorpions, but also because it's air conditioned, which on a hot day can be a godsend. But I think my wife and I have been members ever since we started dating, which was 2017. And I think in that time, I've seen some changes at the world of the insect. So What's that kind of like? I mean, is the idea to keep things fresh for visitors, to keep it's based on the needs of the zoo? I mean, how do you determine when and where to make changes and why?
Yeah, I think first we got to dive into the love of spiders and scorpions, which I absolutely love. I
Oh,
just got back from a experience in Kenya, and got encouraged to hold a scorpion on my
I don't know if I go that far.
and the explanation was it's going to think your hand is the ground. It's all going to be fine. And it was exciting, and that natural curiosity comes to the surface, whether it's with insects and spiders or with birds or mammals. So I've always loved that and enjoy that when we see that evolve, and particularly with our visitors. As we think about, what the zoo needs, things, we always are curious. We're curious about how to do things better. We're curious, as any organization should be. The innovation comes from that curiosity. So can we do this better? Can we, if you saw our last big campaign, it was called the More Home to Roam campaign.
Mhm.
That was applying that knowledge that we have, that we can, in this case, do better and create a better space for our elephants to live in by applying what we and our colleagues have learned, by understanding how to focus on an animal's natural behavior, kind of the idea of letting elephants be elephants, and let that direct the design of the habitat. So that's something that's evolved over time. Everybody would like to think that it's just, what your favorite animals are. Cause I don't know how many times since I've been zoo director, people have come up to me and said, why don't you have this animal? And this one's my favorite. And you guys should get capybaras. And it is excitement and interest over the animal is certainly a part of it. Can we help maintain it? And can it help tell a story that furthers our opportunity to create lasting impact? Again, whether that's something here locally or something internationally that we do with our partnerships. So some of the changes you've seen in the insect world have been the same, more home to roam, just on a little smaller scale. We've taken a lot. We've made larger displays. We've sometimes introduced multi species into one display, and they've done a great job bringing new energy and life to a facility that was, opened in the late 70s.
I have to say, Dave, the zoo team is also incredibly creative because you don't have just gobs and gobs of space. You have to work within kind of the confines of an urban setting.
Yeah,
How do you do that?
plants. We are, and I'm fortunate to be both the director of a world-class zoo and a world-class botanical garden. And if you think about your zoo experience, if you go down and see, right now we have this group of 9 small clawed otters in elephant track. So we have a male and a female breeding pair, and they've had 2 litters since they've been here. 7 boys. Um, and they are just full of it. If you go down and see them, they're just what you would expect if you put 7 boys together. They're just excited, curious about everything, jumping and leaping and having fun. And that moment, I think, does create joy, does have fun involved in it. It connects you to animals that live in that Asian elephant habitat. But as you're walking through the zoo, we do, with our landscape designers, with our horticulture team, design that experience in a way, when you enter Elephant Trek, you walk down through almost 100 yards of waterfall, tropical plant. We change the environment that you're walking into botanically. And we have an amazing botanical garden, whether that's the tulip display in the spring, whether that's the annual trials that are going on right now throughout the zoo. Everywhere you go in between the animal habitats is an experience. And we're able to kind of tie that botanical identity into something that I think enhances the overall experience at the zoo, particularly in a small zoo. We don't have a lot of acreage. It's not getting any bigger, and how we manage those sight lines and create that wild illusion. I hope people, when they come to our zoo, appreciate the time and energy that we take to think about what you're looking at. For example, if you're sitting on the base camp deck, you've bought a hamburger and some French fries, and you're sitting out on that deck with your family, and you look out across a pond where you see pelicans, an ostrich in the background, maybe a kudu, and then a lion sitting up behind it, apparently all in the same stretch of land. Of course, it's not. Um, that's all by design, and that comes with experience. We have a great team of designers and architects at the zoo, as well as horticulturalists that make that job a lot of fun. But you, we make a lot out of a fairly small footprint, and we've been good at that, and want to continue to do that.
So, what I want to know is where the animals come from, because I'm sure in the 1950s you could just call up a guy who would go, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and get you a orangutan." But now it seems like A, I'm sure that kind of thing is unethical, but B, so much of the zoo's mission, and it's very visibly on display, is in conservation and in shepherding these species instead of just putting them on display for people.
Yeah. The I got a guy world doesn't really exist anymore. It is so today, the Cincinnati Zoo is accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is the gold standard. There are about zoos and aquariums across North America and expanding a little bit outside of North America now that work together. So we are in the process of, we don't just manage the lions or gorillas or little penguins that we have at the Cincinnati Zoo independently. We work together with all our colleagues, and we share and trade animals based on breeding recommendations, based on genetic diversity, based on an organization's ability to hold and house an animal. So it's very different than what it used to be. And as a result, there are priority species that we all work with. So if we have lowland gorillas, we are part of the SSP, the Species Survival Plan, that is working to ensure their longevity in human care, and then also with programs that help connect our story to the wild to help conservation and help communities that are living side by side with those animals in the wild. Yeah, there's a dating system that goes on behind the scenes with all the species that we have, and one of the things that probably has my signature on it more than any other document since I've been director are things that we call animal transfer forms, where when we send an animal out or we receive an animal, it's all part of a program that is very well defined. We share breeding recommendations. We begin health checks and all quarantine and all kinds of things. Um, it's a thing that we do very well. And by being part of the AZA, we all commit to the same high standard of care and welfare.
So I'm just going to use this opportunity to satisfy my own personal curiosity. I have a very distinct memory at the zoo from being a kid, and I don't know where this is, and I'm sure it's been moved to create room for something of my mom packing us sandwiches, and we ate sandwiches in a park-like area with like a little backhoe that you could shovel dirt.
I've been around the zoo a long time. The backhoe that you can shovel dirt. I can tell you one of the things, bringing food to the zoo, it's one of those things that we've always done. We're not going to stop doing. If you want to bring the cooler in and have a picnic, we have spaces where you can do that. That was probably in Whiting Grove, which is today the entrance to Elephant Trek. Used to be where the picnic shelters were. There was also, I think you're too young for this, there was also an area where we had Ferris wheels and other things that now is where our current picnic groves are. But that idea of how you make an experience, how you choose to organize, your day at the zoo as a family is something that I'm really happy that people take the time to do that, to come out, have fun, bring some food with them if they want. We have certainly plenty of restaurants and things that you can also get food at. But the backhoe, I'm gonna have to dig through the archives on that one.
Well, speaking of backhoes, it seems like the zoo is constantly evolving, despite the landlocked nature of it. There always seems to be construction, development, and growth happening. What are some of the things people can look forward to now? I noticed that the old, I think it was where the white lions were. I think that's becoming the new Mexican wolf habitat.
Yeah, that'll be a new Mexican wolf habitat that will open. We'll be done with construction this fall. I don't think we've set an official opening date yet. But that'll allow us to pull that story of the recovery of the Mexican wolf, a U.S. Success story, right onto what we call the main loop. If you give me a little bit of indulgence here, I think stepping back and thinking about what it is that makes the Cincinnati Zoo a world-class facility. It is that combination of being a botanical garden and a zoo. It is that opportunity to create experiences with diverse wildlife, species from across the globe. When you come to our zoo, you can see 3 of the 4 great apes. You can see gorillas, bonobos, and orangutans. You can see Asian elephants, which now, the 2 young boys that we have swimming in the water. Incredible experiences. So when I look at the vision for the future, it is, how do we continue to create those experiences um, that connect people with nature, um, encourage curiosity about wildlife and about the natural world? So that may come from a big multi-million-dollar habitat, or that may come from one of our staff bringing out an armadillo or Eurasian eagle owl out to meet with visitors and talk with them about nature. So for me, that the importance as we move forward is to continue to focus on our ability to inspire everyone with wildlife every day. That's core to who we are. That is what we wake up in the morning thinking about. And that connection, I think, is more important today than it's ever been. 80% of our U.S. population lives within urban areas. That's neither good nor bad. It just is. And having a place like the Cincinnati Zoo to bring it back to nature, to bring it back to curiosity about the natural world, is at the heart of who we are and what we do. And the connection then is, how do we take that curiosity and joy, that opportunity to inspire hope for the future, and connect that with action that is making a lasting impact? So as we think about future projects, those projects have to ladder up and enable us to accomplish the goal of creating hope and positive action. And in the process, I hope to be able to shine a light on the people, whether here in our community or across the globe, that are dedicated to creating solutions. That if you look at your iPhone or your social media too much, you get inundated with negative stories, with all the challenges in the world. You think nobody's doing anything. Well, of course they are. They're amazing people out there that are accomplishing gargantuan efforts to help coexist with wildlife. And one of my hopes is that our future projects can help us tell those stories and can bring hope to whatever that species is that we're thinking about. But back to your specific question, we're going to open up Mexican wolf, which is a very hopeful story. Mexican wolf, we're down to just a handful of animals. And now there are over 200, close to 300 in the wild today as a result of the activities of organizations like the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. In fact, our team helps lead those projects. So we want to bring that story of coexistence right to the forefront and tell the story of the people that are involved in that on the ground. Other projects like that, we do one, our insect team does one with the American burying beetle that we breed at the zoo and release back into the wild. And we're going to do that here locally again in the near future. We breed sea hecks, which are a kingfisher that live on Guam. And we've actually bred those animals at the Cincinnati Zoo. They can't be released back on the Guam because of the brown tree snake, which found its way there years ago. So birds that never evolved with that animal now have been extirpated or extinct on that island. But we as a zoo community have maintained these species. We've been very successful at breeding them. And now some of the animals that were born at the Cincinnati Zoo are living in the wild on an atoll near Guam, run by that's owned by the Nature Conservancy. So those kinds of success stories are really important. At the next big project that we're going to start construction on this fall, probably in October, people will see it right as they enter the zoo, is renovating the building that the elephants walked out of. our historic 1906 Elephant House. And we want to bring the most exciting, most inspiring experience that you can have at the zoo right to the main entrance, and that being giraffes. So right now we have a pregnant giraffe, Tessa, who is our female that's been with us the longest. She is due somewhere in the fall, maybe a Halloween calf. And we're going to continue to try and grow our tower of giraffes as we remodel that outdoor area to be a space for giraffe, zebra, and then in a separate habitat. We're going to bring our okapi, which are forest giraffes, up to that building again and bring that experience right to the entry. So right when you walk in the zoo, turn to the right and you'll be able to be greeted by a giraffe.
So a group of giraffes is a tower.
A group of giraffes is a tower. Yeah.
See what you learn on Above the Fold.
And it's also going to be the name of our habitat, the Giraffe Tower. And we're super excited with that. That's the kind of engagement that not all animals allow for, but giraffes give us that opportunity to bring you that close to this 16, 17 foot tall animal in a way that you can't do with many. So it's one that I was inspired by when I was a kid. And it's one that I hope to inspire future generations of kids growing up in this community. From there, we'll begin a project to bring back rhino to the zoo, where the giraffes have moved out, move our bongo and rhino up to that facility. And then we get to dream a little bit, because at that point, then you start doing an analysis of, we still have some very old exhibits, some that were built in the late 1930s, have lived an incredible life, but I think close to 100 years is enough. And we're going to be able to think about how we can renovate those and bring a new experience to Cincinnati. And then also areas like, if you remember the old opera house that was at the zoo, the site of the old opera house turned into our Gibbon Islands, which now we've moved the Gibbons and Sidemangs, the Gibbons down to Elephant Track, and the Sidemangs to Elephant Track, the Gibbons to Jungle Trails. So we've got an opportunity there to renovate and upgrade a facility. And I'm thinking about some lemurs and bringing that energy and activity of a multi-species lemur habitat there. We're in the early stages of that dreaming and thinking through what the big future is in the next 10 years, and making sure that our zoo stays a world-class facility that is committed to creating exceptional experiences, working for where people and wildlife thrive. In short, creating hope, connecting it with action, and creating a better world.
Now, as we wrap up, get a couple of rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Best part about living in Cincinnati?
I love soccer, and I love FC Cincinnati. That's been a phenomenal addition to the city. I'm a season ticket holder, but I think the best part is the waterways.
Excellent.
I kayak a lot and enjoy getting out on the river, just enjoying the day.
Oh. Your favorite place to go for a quick lunch, and then where do you go to celebrate a monumentous occasion?
So a quick lunch for me would probably be somewhere around the zoo, somewhere up at UC, whether that's Currito or somewhere like that. For me, in and out, get a good meal. For me, a monumentous occasion, I love going down to OTR. Pep and Dolores is one of my favorites. Mid-City, if you've been to Mid-City, is another one that I love. But I think it's more than the individual restaurant. It's an opportunity to be part of in a community. And I love coming down to OTR and enjoying the space down there.
And then where would you bring out-of-town guests? And you're allowed to say the zoo.
To the zoo. For sure. If they're not asking me when they come to town, I'm going to make sure I bring them to the zoo. In fact, my daughter is coming into town with a friend, and the first thing she asked to do was to come to the zoo. And I'll be able to set up a couple fun encounters. So yeah, the zoo, and I think it brings a lot of people to town. It's such an incredible facility to have right in the middle of our city.
Well, Dave, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Above the Fold is a podcast by the Cincinnati Business Courier, presented by Cincinnati Regional Tourism. The podcast is produced by Neil Slimick and hosted by me, Andy Brownfield, and Tom Nemeropoulos. Our theme music was written and performed by Dylan McCartney. come back next week for another episode of Above the Fold.